You know, how you dress is a form of nonverbal communication to the rest of the world. My guest this week is Tanner Guzy, a men's style coach who helps guys learn how to express themselves and develop their own sense of style in a very masculine way. On this week's episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. With me is Tanner Guzy. Tanner, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Dan. I'm excited to be here, man.
I'm glad to have you here. Tanner is a men's style coach, and I asked him on. I got guys. You've heard me rant about this a little bit before, but sometimes we need some help, and and just pulling it together. We don't know what we're doing. Maybe we want to find our own style, but that's what Tanner does. So you don't pick out clothes for people. You really help guys. You educate guys to kind of find their own style and to make those decisions and simplify it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about it even in the same vein as there's a difference between a personal trainer that will kind of like write your programming for you. They will tell you how many this is the number of, these are the calories you're eating, this is your macro split. And you never really get self-sufficient when you do that. As soon as they take a week off, or as soon as, you
Right.
move to something, you're totally screwed. Whereas a coach is going to teach you how to be able to understand all of those principles so that you can execute on your own, you can adapt on your own and all of that. And so that's the same thing I do with my guys when it comes to stylists. I don't pick out stuff for my clients, and we certainly aren't focused on trends or you got to wear a suit or anything else like that. It's teaching guys how to be able to think about their appearance as intuitively as hopefully your guys are already thinking about their nutrition and their fitness and all that stuff too.
Right. Great. Wow. Well, that's what we need, right? We need skills. Right?
Yeah.
And men need skills. I mean, that's what makes us men. We get skills. So, as you've pointed out, not paying attention to this, a lot of people would question, well, I mean, do masculine men or do men really care about what they dress? I'm going to let you address that because you do it really well.
Yeah, I hear that one a lot, especially when you get into specific demographics. A lot of times it's within the fitness community where you have this one crowd of guys that just like, I just want to wear my ratty old t-shirt and my basketball shorts from 1992. And like, that's it. You can't make me wear anything else. And I don't want to make you wear anything else. But it becomes this kind of thing where they say real men don't care how they look, that somehow having a concern for your appearance is antithetical to traditional masculinity. And what's so funny about this is how myopic that viewpoint is. Right. Where, yeah, if you look at like anything from the post baby boom generation, baby boomers up until like maybe millennials, that was kind of the case. But man, you go back at any other point in time in history and you look at any other culture that's ever existed, and not only have men always cared deeply about appearance as a way that it signals things like courage, strength, mastery, and honor to other men, but the men who cared the most about it, it was actually the warrior class. They were the ones who were the most like hyper focused on how they dressed. And so we're in this kind of weird time frame where the anti-aesthetic or the anti-style is the only acceptable style for a lot of guys that get kind of caught in that mindset. But it's historically very limited. And I would also point out, ironically, where the guys who say that, if you really think you don't care how you look, then wear a pink dress for a week, wear an adult diaper for a week, wear a suit for a week, and tell me that you don't feel different or that people don't treat you differently and it doesn't matter. What they really want to say is, I want to wear what I want to wear, and I don't want you to make me feel guilty because I like what I wear, even though I know it doesn't look great.
Yeah, so even not making a choice is a choice.
Really. Exactly.
Or not choosing to put some effort into it is still
right.
Making a choice and making a communicating.
Totally.
Right? So isn't that really what it is nonverbal communication?
Totally. It's absolutely what it is. And you can develop aesthetic literacy where you're just as articulate with your clothing. And a lot of guys get this when it comes to things like their tattoos or their grooming or their body language or their physiques. I mean, for the guys that really pay attention, like, the difference in, if you were to just see them lined up and they were all wearing the exact same pair of shorts, you could tell the difference between a strongman, a power lifter, a CrossFitter, and a bodybuilder, just in the difference in physiques. And so we understand that based on that visual communication, your clothing helps contribute to all of that too.
Absolutely. Right. And as you've pointed out several times in your posts, that some people just go, whether it's apathy or they try to look apathetic, but then they create a shock value sometimes
Exactly.
they're trying to get, they're still trying to get a reaction out of people,
Oh yeah.
just not a positive one.
Right. And it's a, you can't reject me if I reject you first type of thing. It's a very self-defensive posture to take. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we do get, I think it's like many of us are guilty in certain areas of our lives, get caught in a rut or get caught in the same old, like we've been doing the same thing for this long. We're just comfortable and we're uncomfortable coming out. Like the the baggy cargo shorts look, or the, like you made a post about recently, the long shorts, which look like very 1990s, but that was, late 80s, 90s, where everybody had shorts down below their knees. But prior to that, and now it's coming back, shorts look more short.
Exactly. No, but you're right. I think a lot of men, and you see a few other things that come into this, like our musical tastes. We kind of get stuck in whatever time was like the peak as far as our individuality. And sadly, that's because a lot of guys peak where it's like, this was when I was in college, or this was when I was a newlywed. And then everything that I do ever since then is I just exist to be comfortable. I'm not pushing my boundaries. I'm not trying new things. And so a lot of times I can see guys, I know exactly when they feel like they hit their peak because they still dress like it's 1978 or 1994 or 2007. And there's a look that's associated with when they hit that particular individual peak.
Wow. How about that?
Wild, right?
Yeah, they're communicating too, and
totally.
they're really communicating, and yeah, it's and not that, and you're not, as you said, it's not about being the latest trends or being trendy.
No, not at
all. But it's having a sense of style and understanding what looks good on you. I mean, I think a lot of what you talk about is the fit, like how clothes actually look on your body,
right?
Or how they, versus.
And again, I mean, if you're in great shape, if you're into fitness, if you're doing this kind of stuff that your audience does, I mean, obviously you do it for more than just aesthetic reasons. That's why I love lifting. That's why I love doing, I've boxed, I've done a half Ironman, I've done Spartan races. Like I love moving, I love fitness. And it's not just for aesthetic purposes. I love the way that it helps me get my mind centered. There's so many things that come to it. I love the way that it helps me with my relationships or my, ambition or assertiveness. But there's also the aesthetic benefits that come with it too, which are pretty nice. Sure. And you minimize those if you don't dress in a way that actually kind of like complements all the work that you've put into your body instead of hiding it or obfuscating it. Yeah,
absolutely. So one thing I saw in going through your material, I actually went through your course, Dress Like a Man, which is really cool. Yeah, great stuff, great basics, to kind of like how to pull in and find your look. But you have these style archetypes to help people kind of figure out how to find their own look and start to define that in a way that reflects their either personality or whatever they want to communicate. So could you help us like unpack those archetypes?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 3 of them. And let me set this up the right way, because a lot of guys get really excited about it and then they kind of miss the whole purpose of it. And so I think the thing that's crucial to understand is, sadly, most of us have this perception of style of it's something that somebody else creates. They will create a look or a trend or an expectation, and it trickles down to us plebeians who are just kind of normal everyday dudes. You can go back to the kind of like the long basketball shorts, for example. The history of that is Michael Jordan, when he first started playing professionally, he still wanted to wear his college shorts because he was really loyal to his alma mater. And so he wanted to wear his college shorts underneath his professional shorts, as like a good luck totem and all of that. And so he had to have these other longer, baggier shorts made for him in order to be able to accommodate that. Jordan's good enough at basketball that he kind of sets this trend and it goes outside of basketball and turns into this mainstream thing. And then all of a sudden, your average kid who's like 10 years old in elementary school in 1995 is getting made fun of by his friends because he's still wearing short shorts like dad did in the 80s because he was into Magnum PI, or like grandpa did in the 60s because that's what Sean Connery wore in Bond. And then that gets solidified in your head that this is now what you're supposed to wear. Is it's supposed to be long shorts, and you miss kind of the deeper component of it. And so the deeper component of it is not that style is something that is created by somebody else. It's not created by a magazine like GQ. It's not created by some celebrity or some athlete that kind of like bestows it. It's something that you have to start with on the inside, because when you think about it like expression, you think about it as a form of communication. You have to start just like you do with what we're saying today. You have to start with who you are on the inside and how you turn around and express that out. And so these archetypes are a good way for men to kind of self-identify how they interact with the world. And then it gives you a kind of a direction in which you can start heading so that you can start to dress in a way that not only looks good, but actually feels very authentic and very expressive and very personal, as opposed to I'm just putting on this trend and I hate it and it's stupid, but this is what some stylist told me to do or what my wife told me to do or something else. So with all of that kind of like setting the stage for this, I'll break down the archetypes for you guys. So there's 3 of them and it's 3 R's. It makes it easy to remember. You have rugged, refined, and rakish. And the way that these are kind of set up and split out is it has to do with the primary ways with which you interact with the world around you. So rugged, these are the guys who primarily love doing things physically. It may be something like being a blue collar guy. Maybe, I mean, you can think of like the cowboy, the lumberjack, all of that kind of stuff. Most guys who are into fitness have a good component of the rugged archetype within them. You may be into like camping and outdoorsman stuff. You may be into overlanding. You may just even be into something that doesn't necessarily translate a whole lot more rugged, like basketball or something else, but there's that physical way that you interact with the world. Next are the refined. These are the guys who thrive and interact with the world primarily through social interactions with other people. And it's that they understand hierarchy, they understand systems, they understand like social nuance and mores and all of this. And they thrive by being able to play by the rules, by knowing if I do this and I kind of climb the ladder here, I get to network with this guy there. And then that's how I can kind of like thrive in my own environment is by understanding hierarchies and playing by those rules. The third one is rakish. And these are the guys who understand the hierarchy just as well as the refined guys do. But rather than thriving by playing by the rules, they do it by breaking them. And so these are the guys that give kind of like a big middle finger to all your social mores and all of your kind of limitations based on what you are. And and they really thrive by being able to stand out in their appearance and their clothing. And so when you figure out, and you're going to be all 3 of them, but when you figure out which one is your primary archetype, then you can start to dress in a way that's more expressive of I interact better in the physical world, or I interact better by following the rules and maintaining hierarchies, or I interact better and I thrive by being on the outside and being a rebel and an outcast and an iconoclast and all of that. And it's amazing how even just starting to identify that, most guys, it just opens up so many possibilities for them to give themselves permission to care about their clothes and to start doing it in a way, because then the fear of I'm going to feel like I'm trying too hard or this is a costume or something else just starts to disappear for them.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that is, I think, a fear many times when, especially doing something different, or you feel like you're wearing a costume, or it's wearing you, so to speak.
Right. Exactly.
And so you got to take ownership of it.
Right.
So how do you help guys take ownership of that, of this new style? I mean, what do you tell them, or how do you help them wrap their brains around not feeling like they're wearing this new thing that they're trying to change? You know, change is scary, so there's just that fear of like judgment, and so like, how do you coach them through that?
So we focus on a couple different things, but a lot of it is really just, and this is the thing that's tricky about style, is everybody judges you by it, but it's totally crass and like totally socially obtuse to actually vocalize it. Where I may say like, I think your hair actually looks really stupid, Zane. I don't, but you know, I may think that in my head. I'm never going to tell you that. I will never. It's totally ridiculous. Like I'm the one who's putting my foot in my mouth if I tell you something that, oh, your hair looks ridiculous, even though your hair looks ridiculous and everybody else thinks that same thing, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's an environment in which we don't get a lot of feedback, and the stuff that we do get is often very subtle, or it can kind of misdirect us in other directions. I hope I'm not making you self-conscious about your hair. Your hair is awesome.
No, I'm good. Yeah, no, yeah.
You've got a great head of hair. But what it is so the first thing is I help give these guys feedback as far as like, yeah, this works, or no, this doesn't work, or let's kind of push you outside of your comfort zone a little bit, or dude, you totally overcorrected. You got to rein that back in. You got to play with that. But again, the level of self-sufficiency that I help get them to is really the primary focus. And so there's a couple of things that I teach these guys to really pay attention to. I mean, one of them is just, there are simple rules to style. There are things that artists will be able to understand, like color theory. the golden ratio, which is the stuff that like Leonardo da Vinci created when he created the Vitruvian Man. And this is all the stuff that you find in nature that has to do with symmetry and proportions and dimensions and color and contrast and warmth and coolness, and all of these things. Like, this applies to clothing and applies to us. And I know a lot of you guys are like, holy crap, that's so overwhelming, and I don't even want to think about that. It's really easy to parse out. I promise that's actually the easiest thing to parse out. So we do the aesthetic stuff. We focus on communication, because unless you're a complete sociopath and you don't want to interact with or influence other people, then you need to understand that clothing is a method of communication. And how do you use your clothing to send the signals that you want to send? And how do the people that matter in your life interpret those signals that you want to send? Because you take something like the cargo shorts and you go wear those in Rome 2000 years ago and you're a complete moron, or you go wear them in whatever country exists in the future 2000 years from now and you're a complete moron. And so you have to understand kind of this macro context of where you live, who you interact with, what your status is within it. And I know, again, it sounds complicated, but it becomes very easy to navigate once you learn the system. And then the third component of it is this idea of self-perception. How do you take who you are on the inside? Like, what does the ideal Zane look like when you post on social media? What does your wife see about you on the inside that she doesn't see on the outside? That's one of the things that the wives of my clients really love, is after we get going and they get a few reps under their belt with me, they're just like, he actually looks like the person that I know. This is the man that I love. This is actually who I see every day. And now the whole world gets to see it. And even more importantly, he gets to see it and he gets to reinforce it in his own head. And he gets to believe this about him, as opposed to he's still holding on to his glory days, or the rest of the world overlooks him or misunderstands him because of that. And so a lot of the wives really, really love finally seeing this congruence in their husbands between who he is on the inside and who he is on the outside. And for the men that go through this, it just feels like, I mean, imagine go back to being 2 years old and when you're learning how to speak and how just fumingly frustrated you are because you can't articulate your words. That's how a lot of guys don't realize that they felt about their aesthetic, and they've just buried it for so long. And then when you finally learn how to be able to express yourself with your clothing, as well as you express it through your words, your whole world opens up all over again. And it's pretty awesome.
I'll bet it's a form of expression. I've found myself in a rut with the other areas. So like I'm trying to like break through on what can I do to change how people perceive my business, or what can I do to help me? Like I want to write a book, or I want to do something to get in that in another space, to kind of get out of the comfort zone. So I'm changing my own exterior, whether letting my hair grow longer, like it was short for years and let it go longer, or just my own perception of myself, or breaking some rules, giving myself a little bit uncomfortable. I say breaking rules, but self-perceived, right?
Exactly.
And come out of that comfort zone a little bit can actually help you feel a little more creative, or like you just come out of that rut. You know what I mean?
You're reshaping your identity. And so you're giving yourself permission to go, okay, maybe I'm not as one-dimensional as I thought in these other areas, because I'm not as one-dimensional as I thought in this area either.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just how people perceive you. Something I've heard you bring up is when, like, you definitely avoid trendiness, because trendiness tends to be a very young thing. But when we see older guys, let's say our age, I'm quite a bit older than you, but get wearing things that maybe are not a good reflection of their age or their status or what they've accomplished in their life. Can you?
Yeah.
And sometimes it looks like, as you said, it looks like their wives dressed them.
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple of kind of hangups that come with that. And the first thing is that you got to understand that, contrary to what the world tries to tell us today, men and women are very different. And
wow,
I know, right? Just like we're going to hit that. But I mean, we're very different, and we're different in not just our physiology, but even in kind of what our relationship with so many things are. And that includes what our aesthetic goals are. For the most part, women understand that in order for them to dress well, they have to signal a couple of things. One, it's fertility, really. Like, you go back biologically, and that's what it is. That's why so many women dress the way that they do. That's a big part of it. Youth is a big part of that. And so they want to be able to look young and look relevant as long as possible. And then another big thing is that they're competing with each other. Like, most women don't really care what men think of their appearance. They're competing with the other women in their lives. Sure. And so they have these kind of very different approaches. And then when they try to translate those or project those onto the men in their lives, it doesn't work at all. Because for men, looking too young means that we've lost everything that we've earned over the last, maybe it's 15 years, maybe it's 35 years. Yeah. But because for a young man is untested. He's all this potential and none of it is actually realized. And so men are not as valuable when they're 18 to 25. That's when women from a sexual market perspective are at their peak value, because that's when they're the most fertile. And again, that's going to like biological stuff. But men, that's when we're kind of like the biggest liability, is because we're untested.
That's for
right.
Sure.
Right. And it's after you get some reps under your belt. It's after you gain some experience. It's after you have some failures and some successes. It's after you build some wealth and amass some status and build credibility and establish authority and do all of these things, that then you become valuable as a man, because you've taken the potential and you've turned it into the kinetic, you've turned it into the real. Why in the world would you dress in a way that signals I'm all potential and I'm none of these things that I've actually earned? You're totally undermining yourself when you do that. And so where women want to dress to look younger, what men should primarily be dressing to do is look more accomplished, more credible, more authoritative, and have it reflect the status that hopefully we've earned over the years. And that becomes something that is very much not trendy, because, and yeah, I mean, again, styles change and they will over time. You can't just wear a suit all the time anymore like you used to and have it signal those things of authority or credibility or status. But you certainly should not be doing the super wide and high cropped pants that you're seeing on TikTok with Generation Z when you're in your 40s or your 50s, because it doesn't work. It sends the entirely wrong signals for you.
Right. Absolutely. I get it. Yeah. Absolutely. You're underwriting your own, like you said, your own skill set, your own experience, your wisdom. And so there's a way to do that without being hyper conservative as well.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. I think the best way to think about it is you can compare. And I think I really should know this because I use this reference often. I don't remember if it was Washington or Jefferson, but the quote is basically, in matters of principle, stand firm like a rock, and in matters of fashion, swim with the current. And so the current is kind of a really good way to think about this, where you can think about a big, broad river. Okay. When you're young and you're untested and you're all potential, you want to be in wherever the current is strongest, and it changes and it's frothy and it's chaotic and it's all over the place. But that's kind of where you cut your teeth and you learn. And most of us do this when we're in junior high or high school and we're dressing because I want to look like that crowd or I don't want to look like that crowd. And it changes all the time and it's all over the place.
Right.
So you don't want to be there when you're older. We've already hit on that. But at the same time, if you think about an eddy in a river or a spot where the water's just still, that's where things are dead. That's where things don't work. And so you just need to move over into a part of the river where it still flows, but it flows more stably. It flows more consistently. And it does it in a way that has a little bit more gravitas and a little bit more weight to it. Because again, we can look at this as, you dress more conservatively. You should wear suits. That signals authority. Well, no, it doesn't anymore. Just like you can't wear lace around your neck and around like your cuffs, like Shakespeare did when he wanted to convey authority. Or you can't wear a toga that's fringed in red like the Romans did when they wanted to convey authority. Like we can see when we really zoom out how that current flows. And so you want to make sure that you're keeping pace with it the right way. You're not going too fast, but you're not dead in the water either.
Gotcha. So for instance, like the rakish look, which probably is the least conservative, I guess, of the three, can still be done with someone who is in their 40s and 50s.
Totally.
But in a way that's not necessarily the current trend. Is just more of a personal flair, right? A personal way to say, hey, I'm not into your rules. I'm making
right.
my own.
Yeah, I'm comfortable being an outsider. And there's a big difference between a lot of guys when they think of rakish, they think of like really, really strong, aggressive styles. And that certainly is one way to do it. But there's a big difference between very proactively signaling that I want your attention, that I'm almost like desperate for attention. I demand you pay attention to me, or a much more subtle version of, I don't really care if you pay attention to me or not. If you don't like that I don't conform, that's on you. If you don't like that I do conform, that's on you. I'm going to wear what I want to wear. And that's a little bit there's a whole different level of something that comes to that, as opposed to pay attention to me and I'm throwing the middle finger at all you and you all suck and your rules are stupid. And yeah, it's different attitude with it.
Right. A different side into the spectrum.
Right.
Basically. It's too far over.
But both of them still fit that rakishness very well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can play it in a way that's like you said, personal. I think that's one thing you do, guys do, is make something that's personal, where they can play in all three of those, but they find their own space where they're conveying what they want to convey.
Right. So. Which, I mean, you think about it when you talk to your friends, you talk to people at work, people speak in a way that's very personal. They use their own jargon. They use their own idioms. They use their own filler words. They have this certain way that they pronounce different letters or anything. And again, we intuitively do that when it comes to our verbal language. And in a lot of ways, you intuitively do it when it comes to your aesthetic language. My job is to just teach guys to do it better and more intentionally, as opposed to haphazardly.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, that's what we want. Have a little, some guidelines, but some, like you said, understanding of how to do it.
Yep.
So, I mean, this obviously plays into, as you brought up before, the difference between men and women, and that there are big differences between men and women. And there's a cultural attack on masculinity right now, obviously, as you, if someone hadn't noticed.
Surprise.
Yeah. And so, I mean, how is that, do you think that's affected the way so many men are just so apathetic about how they enter? For instance, I was walking down the mall, just getting some shopping done. It was like 11:30, 12 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock, 11:30 in the morning. And it was this 20-something-year-old guy's walking past me. He's in a frumpy sweater, plaid pajama bottoms, and Crocs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's December. It's 11:30 in the middle of the day. You look like you just rolled out of your mom's basement, and I didn't have a care in the world, or a job, or a date, or anything. anything going for you. And obviously that communicates something. That's an extreme side of the spectrum. But I think, is this attack on masculinity affecting maybe the desire to be
totally
okay?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, because and I think that this is one of the genius moves of this. And I don't know like who the cabal of people is that like, we're going to pull this lever and we're going to, obviously we're joking there, but I think this is one of the things that's so kind of tricky about this, is that we've been convinced for decades that it is antithetical to masculinity to care about your appearance. But then we don't see how that bleeds into the fact that it means that you become antipathetic to things like hierarchy or order or self-respect or honor, respect to other people. Because this kid who rolls into the mall in his pajamas like that, he doesn't believe in hierarchies. He doesn't believe in objective truth. He doesn't believe in self-respect. He doesn't believe in respecting other people. He doesn't believe in good manners. All he believes in is, I want to be comfortable and I want to feel good. And anybody who tells me that anything that I do is not, they're the asshole. Right? That's what he's communicating, not only to the rest of us, but also to himself. That's what he's reinforcing in himself. And I see that all the time, where people dress in a way that's like that, almost to dare you to judge them poorly or to call them out, because then they get on their moral high horse of, well, I'm not judgmental. I'm just living my truth. Who are you to say that I can't do this? And all of that is incredibly anti-masculine, because masculinity exists in the hard rules. It exists in the difference between order and chaos. It exists in hierarchy. It exists in right versus wrong in ways that this kind of androgyny never will.
Right. Absolutely. And so that's certainly affecting our whole culture and the way it's interacting with each other and with, and I think even, I say it's that's strong that way in Europe as well, but they have a stronger sense of style. But I think there's that attack on masculinity where it's changed the way they dress or portray themselves. But in the US has been traditionally pretty rugged. I mean, cowboys, right? And Ralph Lauren, very rugged, very American, plaids and suedes and jeans, and
all that texture, all that rough material that can handle a beating, all of it.
Yeah, it can handle a beating. And we're seeing that eroded, I'd say.
Totally. And we see it eroded because you get plenty of guys who say, well, I still dress rugged. And it's that, again, I wear my combat boots and my long cargo shorts and my t-shirt. And and it's ironic that they all end up dressing exactly the same when they all pretend that they don't care, but they all have to look exactly the same as each other so that they, signal that they don't care the same way.
Right.
But but yeah, there's an element of ruggedness, there's an element of individuality in there, but it's this false dichotomy of that in order to be rugged and in order to be an individual, you have to hate the idea of aesthetics. And I think it falls very similarly to the trope of like the dumb jock or the weak nerd, that we have been given these kind of like false dichotomies as men, where it's okay, yeah, you want to work on your body, you can't be smart, you can't be smooth, you can't be socially capable, you just have to be a dumb idiot who's strong. Or you want to be intelligent, you want to be articulate, you want to be great, then the best exercise you can hope to do is running, maybe triathlon, but don't you dare touch a weight. Don't you dare get physically strong. Don't you become resilient. Don't you ever touch a combat sport or anything like that. And most traditional cultures, Western, Eastern, African, whatever, doesn't matter. Most traditional cultures that valued masculinity understood that we needed to be all of those things. We needed to be aesthetically masculine. We needed to be physically, intellectually, socially, financially, spiritually masculine in every way, as opposed to creating this stupid one-dimensional pocket that we go all in on and then ridicule anybody else who doesn't fit within that same pocket as we do.
Right. Right. And there is a ridicule that comes with it. Defensiveness. Let's just say it's a defensiveness and attack on someone who pays more attention to it. It's just really coming from, like, those are the ones who would say something. Absolutely. Like you say, most people wouldn't say something, but at the same time, that's when you'll hear from your buddies or whatever, you do something. And it's like, I'd say if someone's, as you pointed out, says something to you, take a look at what they're wearing.
Right.
And consider the source the old expression is.
How much do I trust your opinion on this?
I like, how was that Slayer concert you look like you just came from? So that and not all about that scene, but it's like, it should not be your uniform for everyone,
right?
And to project it onto others when you feel insecure is basically what they're doing. So how do you go about coaching? I know you have the online platform, which kind of gives some basic education. You do some group coaching as well. How do you?
Yeah. So I do a group version of my coaching and also a one-on-one.
Okay.
And basically what we do is we cover those three different components. We do the aesthetics, the communication, and the self-perception. And so for both the group and the one-on-one guys, you have access to the same program. It's a 6-week program that kind of like tees up these different principles and helps you take them out of the realm of theory and start to apply them into what your own circumstances are. And then we've got a really active Slack channel. I'm in there every day helping the guys out. We do group Q&A calls. And then with my one-on-one guys, we take it even to a further level where we're doing a bunch of video calls. I give them good feedback on stuff. And a lot of my guys will even come out to me in Salt Lake and spend a day or two shopping with me to help them kind of get up and running on their own. But the whole goal, all of them, I had one of my clients just this week. I think I'll get it posted up on Instagram pretty soon here. Posted up a photo of some great killer stuff that he's in. And I have no idea what the brands are. He never checked with me. He's like, how does this fit? Or what do you think of this? He looks fantastic. And he doesn't need me to reaffirm that because he knows he's killing it. And that's where I get my guys. And that's the goal, is to get everybody there. Yeah.
Gotcha. Where they're running their own ship and
totally
make their own decisions and branching out as they need to. And
it's really what's more masculine than that, than being totally self-sufficient in a brand new arena that was unfamiliar and a little bit intimidating before.
Right. Excellent. That's a great way to put it. That's how you coach men, basically. That's really how you coach men. That's awesome. So what do you have anything coming up this in the new year that's kind of something you're promoting to people who want to maybe connect with you, or is there something coming up?
That's a good question. I don't have anything necessarily. I've got quite a few irons in the fire that we're trying to figure out what the order is going to be. But if you guys want to, if this is interesting to you and you want to kind of get an idea of what's coming up and what's coming down the pike, both for me individually and a couple other groups that I'm kind of collaborating with, and we're creating some ideas together. Cool. Honestly, just follow me on social media, and then you can kind of get a feel for this, especially because you'll notice, like we've already talked about here, clothing is one part of what I talk about. but the main root of everything is in masculinity. And yeah, I talk about it related to clothing, but I talk about it related to anything else. And so if that's something that's interesting to you, the idea of maintaining, rebuilding, restoring masculinity, then I think you'll like what I put out on Twitter and Instagram and other social media channels. Yeah.
Right. That's why I found you on Instagram. And I saw your great podcast with Michaela.
Oh yeah,
Peterson.
thanks.
So that was
fun.
awesome. Yeah. I mean, that was quite a great podcast. Good portrait of you and what you do and personal side.
Thank you. Yeah, she was great. I really, we got to be friends. We did a TED event together, and I really.
Oh, did you really?
Got to know, yeah, that's how we got connected. And Michaela's great. Yeah, I'm excited to see her and her dad when they come out here in March. And she's awesome. She's doing really cool things with her show.
She really is. Yeah, she relocated to here in the Nashville area.
Frankly. Oh, is that where you are? Awesome.
That's why. Yeah. So she relocated here, and there's pictures of her and her dad
right now.
Oh yeah, it's wild. And there's pictures of her and her dad dancing downtown.
I saw those. It's pretty cool.
At the country places. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, Nashville's kind of blowing up. And you know, there's the concept here is country, you know, look, or you know,
right?
the cowboy shirts, jeans, but there's a lot more coming in here. Some edgy stuff. Some guy looks like people who've coming out of, you know, Austin, maybe moving this way, but just it's got a little more. It's rugged and a little rakish, but it's got a little more. It's not just country music,
right?
You know what I mean?
Because there's the rock and roll element that gets injected in there, not only
Absolutely.
From a musical component, but from an aesthetic component as well.
Absolutely, we got a lot of rock and roll going on here.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And it's hitting the style, the fashion as well, and it's really cool to see Nashville kind of grow up. It's like hard to see. It gets so crowded, but it's great to see it grow up a bit in that sense, like taking on a personality that's bigger than just country music, and
right,
especially with people like Michaela coming in here. But again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here and talk to us about this. Where's the best place to reach? I know I got you on at Tanner Guzy on Instagram. Are you on Facebook as well? Or?
I am. You can look me there. I'm not super active on Facebook. It's mostly Instagram and Twitter, and both of those are at Tanner Guzy. Yep. Also, if you guys want to figure out what your archetype is and then kind of get plugged into my ecosystem with mailing lists and all that, where I dive deep into a lot of these things, learn more about the coaching. If you go to masculine-style.com, there's a place in there where you can take the archetype quiz, and then you can learn more about what that looks like, figure out which one is your primary one, and start to get more familiar with me and my approach from there too. Yeah.
Great. Oh, you wrote a book.
I did. Yep. I wrote a book called The Appearance of Power. It's all of this kind of like all of these ideas in one really easy to access place. You know, it's like a quick 3-hour read. You can find it on Amazon. If you like the way my voice sounds, you can listen to it on Audible because I narrated it too. But cool. Yeah, go check that out because it really is kind of like the full summation of everything that I teach in a really kind of like manageable way to swallow all of it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll link to that in the show notes. Make sure they find that easy. That's great. That's a great way to get it all into one place, you know, just to pack it in there. But that's also, I appreciate your time. Have a great Christmas. I know you got a big family there, right?
Yeah. 5 kids, man. So it's going to be a good Christmas for us. Yeah.
5. Yeah. 5. They've got one more than me.
We had our 5th this year. Nice.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's amazing. Great. Well, I appreciate it. And I'll get these links in the show notes, and I look forward to continuing engaging with you on Instagram. It's fun.
Yeah. It's been fun to get to be friends with you on there. So thanks for having me on the show, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Have a great week.